Well, Neal, usual easy one to start. What's your latest injury news going into this weekend?
Um, well, seeing how we didn't have a game, we've managed to get through Tuesday all right. Got through training today, so yeah, we are as we are. Damien and Callum really being the ones that as we already know, everybody else is raring to go.
How frustrating was midweek? The game was called off so late. At one point, it looked like you were going to be on, but I guess just too much rain fell, did it?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, the weather forecast wasn't great, and it's difficult because you can't beat Mother Nature sometimes. And not only are we fighting the pandemic, but we're fighting with games. The weather, and we worked really hard last week, and the guys got the game on, clearing the snow. And this time round, the water was just too much for the pitch, and no matter how hard everybody tried, particularly the ground staff, we just couldn't seem to turn it round.
I gather you did get the players to have a session doing something. What were you able to do on the night?
So we just went upstairs behind the stand in the we call it the sweat box, the little indoor 3G area. So we just we could have had them in on Wednesday and trained, but we just, while we was there, we had a good blast, got a real good sweat on. Boys all got themselves off and back in today, and a good training session this morning.
How much is the disruption hurt? I mean, it's hurting everyone because all teams are getting disrupted, but the snow across the country, the rain, the COVID, how disrupting is it for you and your coaching staff and the players that week in, week out, there's so much uncertainty?
It's hard. I mean, I've had to change the way I work a little bit. When I worked with sports psychologists, we always talked about naming the team on a Friday being a good thing, giving clarity to everybody, and everybody knows their roles. But it's been very difficult this year because there's always, every time. I mean, Weymouth, we had a phone call before the game saying that they were getting a ref in for a pitch inspection at Weymouth last week. Obviously, we had the week before at Solihull. Then we've had Tuesday just gone. So it's really hard with everything that's going on to be able to plan that far ahead. You normally know about an hour and a half before kick-off for sure that this game's going to go ahead, and on you go and you crack on.
So the FA Trophy on Saturday, Havant and Waterlooville, with all that's going on, with all the games, with all the stopping and changing, how much planning have you been able to do as a team for this game?
Well, we haven't been out of plan. We was focusing on the game on Tuesday night originally. Count the bodies. We had a sort of game plan of how we was going to get through this week. We're going to stick to that despite the game being called off. We'll prep tomorrow. We've got a good day tomorrow. We can normally do a lot of our work. We're not going to change what we do. By and large, it's just making sure that the team and the synergy between them is there, and they know what to expect from Havant. 3G pitch. They're doing well in their league up until when they've sort of stopped playing. They're a few games behind, but if they catch up, they'll be up in and around the top. So it's going to be a really tough game.
Where do you think their biggest threats will come from?
Well, they've got various. I mean, obviously I know Tommy Wright from Sutton days. He's a threat. Always looking to play on the shoulder. Got goals in him. Danny Kedwell, I know well from AFC Wimbledon. Although he's in the later stages of his career, he's an absolute handful, both physically and aerially. But to be fair, I've played against Dozzie's teams loads and never had an easy game. So I'm not going to expect one on their home pitch in a cup competition where there's Wembley at the end of it. It's, the boys got to be up for it. But we want tough games. We want good games. We want to test ourselves and see if we can keep producing performances that get results.
I think you've kind of answered that question here. The question I was about to ask about Wembley. I was going to say, could you do without it with all that's going on? But you've just mentioned reasons there why I guess it's still important to you.
I think the hard part is, you can look at it and say that, it's another game, we don't need any more games, you're better off out of it, other teams are going to get the advantage at the end of the year. But it's really, really hard not to want to win games when you haven't had enough games to play so far. Everyone wants to win games, we want to keep momentum going, boys want to stay unbeaten. There's so many reasons to go out and give it everything you've got it's very, very difficult to have a different attitude, and that's the attitude we will have.
Before we finish, I just want a couple of questions on a couple of off-the-field matters. I'm not sure whether you've seen the vaccination Chesterfield story this morning, and I don't want you to comment maybe specifically on that because that's perhaps a bit unfair. And I think details are still emerging. But is there any way you think that football players maybe should jump to the higher in a queue because you are the ones going out week in, week out, getting into contact with each other?
Personally, I don't. I think there's too many people that should be vaccinated. Too many. If we're going to get, it's got to be the bigger pictures about the country, about not just the country, about the world. I think we could get our country in order, but the world won't get back to normal unless we help other people. So I think we've got to get as many people that need to be safe, and I'm pretty sure that footballers come down the pecking order in respect to that. I get that we're out there and we can't socially distance on a football pitch. That's why I think testing's important for football teams to sort of identify early. If we were testing every week, we could identify and keep the bubbles as safe as possible. But I think there's too many people that are important ahead of us.
We talked at the start of the pandemic about, I remember last March, about are you worried about playing football? When it was starting in the country, then again when you restarted. Since then, obviously, you've had coronavirus cases within the camp, but is there still a fear, do you think, amongst footballers about going out week in, week out and playing?
Well, obviously, we've had the incident with Wes Thomas, so we're well aware that is the case, and there is that fear. We've made it very clear to our players, if anybody's got any concerns, that they need to come and see us, and they won't be judged on whatever their concerns are. But the boys, like I say, I think we've had sort of 85%, 90% of the squad have had it, and I think the boys feel like we're doing a lot of things right to keep our bubble safe. And I think we feel like we can continue playing. It's safe enough to do so. Obviously, I think probably young, fit players aren't so much concerned about their own health and any symptoms they might get. I think everybody's concerned about being a transmitter and, passing it on to somebody who isn't quite as fit and might suffer from it. I think that's everybody's main concern. And
just finally, because this is kind of connected, but I think we all know which way you're going to vote in the National League vote. That's no secret. But have you made that vote yet, Notts County? I think you had 28 days.
Do you know what? I haven't got a clue, and that's the honest answer. I took a while just to kind of digest what was going on and try and work out the processes that are going to go on. I think I've got a stranglehold on it now. I'm probably not even certain I have, but I feel like I know what has to happen now. I just hope that the votes are cast with integrity, and they're cast because of what the right thing for the leagues and for football is, and not just because certain people want to write their season off because they don't feel like they're going to get anywhere this season.
Thank you, Neal. Appreciate those answers. Really good. Thank you.
John?
Yeah. Hi, Neal. You all right?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, you probably know more about the possibilities of the National League than I do. I mean, is it a case that each individual league is voting, or is it the whole of the National League, and has to be a majority for the Premier Division and the North and South?
I think the process, there's two processes I think that need to go through. One is the initial vote is to split the league so that they have their own separate votes. So that has to be voted on in initial instance, so that they're not joined in, so that, for argument's sake, Havant and Waterloo aren't voting on what happens to Notts County's season, only their own league. And once that vote or resolution is passed, then the second vote would obviously be then down to the leagues to vote on their own leagues. So I think there's two processes. I think it's not going to happen overnight. Obviously, they have to give clubs 28 days to gather their thoughts and their way of doing things. So over the next few weeks, I think we'll have a clearer indication of how it's all going.
It's already been hanging over us for a couple of weeks, hasn't it? Do you get any impression as to which way it's edging as time goes by?
No, not really. There's mixed views. I think a lot of clubs initially were trying to understand how the from grants to loans, how that was going to affect them, get some more detail on that so they could understand over the period of time, if they were to take a loan, what that was going to mean to them. So I think there was all these kind of questions going on, and it's not something people can just rush into. So I think when everybody's got a bit of a stranglehold on that, or when certain clubs who have got concerns have got a stranglehold on that, they'll have a clear indication of which way they want to go. But first and foremost is, the process for me probably needs to be that each league should get to vote on their own league and not vote on other leagues that aren't anything to do with them.
Yeah, obviously the postponement in midweek has made it a little bit harder. How much harder do you think that is for you to fulfil the games as they stand at the moment within the required time?
Yeah, I think we'll be out of bit. I mean, depends on how this cup run goes as well. That could end up adding some more midweeks to it. But we've fought a lot of things to get to this point. We fought hard. We had to go through a lot of processes, even to play the playoffs, to get the season started. We are where we are. There's no point in looking back saying if we'd have done this or we'd have started the season earlier or etc. etc. We've just got to look at it now and say, this is where we are, and let's not find excuses or look for excuses, because if you look for excuses or you look ahead and you start saying, oh, this is going to be a nightmare, then you're already beating yourself before you've even got there. And I believe this group of players can stay fit, can chip in, can all muck in over a period of time and can keep momentum. I think they're good enough too. I think they've got the right mentality too. So I'm not going to worry about it. Whenever the games come, we'll just deal with them.
And are you prepared to eat into your holiday a couple of weeks if it need be?
I'm not even sure I'm going to get a holiday this year. I didn't have one last year. I think my family might probably end up getting one later on in the year, and I'll end up I might get a weekend away in the UK or something. So I've written off. It's probably the longest I've ever gone without going abroad. I've written off going abroad. That would be a big bonus if anything like that was available at the time.